The Penguins will look to get their third straight win tonight over the St. Louis Blues, and Pat and I are going to preview that game, plus discuss Tristan Jarry getting the start once again right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. You can follow him on all social media platforms at Synonym for Wet, and you can follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. Of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen/watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. And finally, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So, Pat, the Penguins welcome in the St. Louis Blues for the first and only time to Pittsburgh this season. And also, this is the first of two meetings still against the Blues. It is so weird how the schedule sorts itself out. The Penguins have still not played the Blues. Again, that'll change tonight. They've also not played the Chicago Blackhawks either. They're not going to play the Blackhawks until April. Again, the schedule makers just do this weird stuff where some teams you're already done playing against at this point of the season, but you still got to play a couple of teams that you haven't played yet this season. It makes me laugh a little bit. But the Blues, they come in very much alive in the Western Conference playoff race. They've won 7 of their last 10 games. They are 31-27-7 right now. So 2 points behind the Calgary Flames for that final playoff spot in the Western Conference. They are on the road 16-13-4, -7 goal differential, though they did lose their last game. The Blues, to me, are kind of a painfully average team. They are 16th in the league in goals for per 60. They are 12th in the league in goals against per 60 at 5-on-5. Those numbers come courtesy of Money Puck. 2.38 goals for per 60, 2.18 goals against per 60 at 5-on-5. The defensive metrics, they are what you would expect from a Jim Montgomery coach team. Montgomery has always been one of the better defensive coaches in the league. Offensively, though, this is kind of where the Blues have been for the last few years. Just okay, but nothing great. And you look at the Blues and their roster for tonight, like they still have some good pieces up front. You know, Jake Neighbors is having a strong year. Robert Thomas is playing well. Pavel Buchnevich is also having a good year. Penguin killer Brayden Schenn once again in the lineup. There was some talk about him potentially getting dealt around the trade deadline, but I think the Blues were asking for quite the price, and rightfully so. He's having a good year again. But Brayden Schenn has played very well against the Penguins over his career. 10 goals, 24 points in 38 games against the Penguins. A lot of those matchups came when he was a member of the Philadelphia Flyers, but he has still been able to produce as a member of the Blues. Again, you know, Robert Thomas, he leads the team in points, 17 goals, 51 points in 53 games. Jordan Kyrou has had another strong year, 24 goals, 50 points in 65 games. Dylan Holloway, who they got via offer sheet, is also a 20-goal scorer. Buchnevich, his goal scoring isn't there, but he's still been at least a strong playmaker this year. Already mentioned Schenn. Colton Parayko, he's had a good year, but he's also banged up right now, which is a big loss for Blues as they're trying to make the playoffs. And then Jake Neighbors, as I said, he has 16 goals this year. So you look at the metrics, you look at their counting stats, they're fine. Like, they're nothing special. This is still an opportunity, though, for the Penguins, if they want to try and play spoiler. You know, they kind of did that against Minnesota on Sunday because Minnesota is trying to make the playoffs. They did it a little bit to Vegas on Tuesday because Vegas is trying to win the Pacific Division. And now they have a chance to do it to a Blues team that is fighting for their playoff lives right now, Pat. And I should mention Jordan Binnington. He's been very good since the Four Nations face-off break.
He really has. I was talking to Hunter about this before we hit record, and I feel in general, both about the Blues and Jordan Binnington specifically, like the Shaquille O'Neal meme. I'm sorry I was not familiar with your game, because I kind of said earlier this week, like, yeah, you know, the Blues, they're fine. They're not all that great. They've been pretty good since the Four Nations face-off break, and a lot of that is powered by Jordan Binnington in his appearances, because there is a replacement in there, which is the outlier for him since the Four Nations face-off break. He has gone 926, 962, 750. That was in replacement against Dallas, and he only faced 12 shots. So he didn't really have a ton to work with there. And the Dallas Stars are just that good.
Yeah.
But then 9-13 and 8-7-5. So maybe he's coming back to earth a little bit. But if nothing else, since being named the starter and winning the Four Nations face-off, Jordan Binnington has kind of found the fountain of youth a little bit. This is looking a lot like Jordan Binnington when the Blues went on their run in 2019. He looks a lot like a very good goalie. Now, again, could be a small sample size. It's only 4 starts and 1 relief appearance, but overall, he has been a huge contributor for the St. Louis Blues. And this really is one of the most quintessential St. Louis Blues teams that you can imagine, where they obviously have Montgomery behind the bench, and you know that a team coached by Jim Montgomery is going to play an extremely disciplined, extremely structured style. So there's not going to be a lot of open ice out there. But you ran down a lot of the players on their team who are having quote unquote good years. I don't want to downplay it, but their leading point scorer is Robert Thomas with a whopping 51. This is like every St. Louis Blues team we've seen over the years where they don't really have that standout superstar who is just going to lead the way and you hope to give him a supporting cast. They have a lot of guys who have scored 30 or more points for them. They have their leading goal scorer is Kyrou with all of 24. So this is a team that gets it done by committee. They play a really good, disciplined system. And while it's only gotten them to the fringe of the playoffs, part of the problem was at the beginning of the year, they weren't getting a lot of good goaltending. They weren't really able to get a lot of help elsewhere. But now they're kind of rounding into a form where, are they a contender in the West? No, but are they a team that if you face them in the first round, you're going to have to bring your A game? Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think with how good the West is, like the Blues won't be like a gimme team that you'll just sweep or something like that if they get in. But I still think they can give one of the top teams, whether it's Winnipeg or Vegas, enough problems where, they can maybe take that series to 6 games. I don't think the Blues would beat either of those two teams, FYI, but I still think they can get to a point where it's like, okay, you might beat us, but you're going to pay the price by beating us. But another area where I think the Penguins could have an advantage tonight is on the right side of the Blues defense. Colton Parayko is not healthy right now. He is not going to be playing in this game, Pat. And you look at the right side of St. Louis's defense. Nick Leddy is on the top pairing, followed by Justin Falk and Tyler Tucker. That is a very weak right side. And I think the Penguins could definitely take advantage of that in this game.
Yeah, that is definitely going to be a place they have to focus the right side of the ice, whether it's pulling that defenseman out of position or at the very least exploiting that. And I mean, back to Binnington, another key focus for them tonight. We know how much of a hothead he can be.
Yeah.
You don't have Michael Bunting anymore, unfortunately, but whoever wants to take that mantle tonight, it's got to be a lot of net front play. It's got to be a lot of pass off the pads. It's got to be a lot of screens, because you get him rattled, he suddenly starts focusing on getting his revenge on whoever he felt wronged him, then stopping the puck. So I got to quote the classic film Major League. The Penguins won a game on Sunday. They won another on Tuesday. If they win tonight, that's 3 in a row. It's called a winning streak. It has happened before.
Wouldn't it be funny if they just started a little winning streak now, right when, once again, they're kind of buried in the standings? But I think that would do it for this preview segment of today's episode. Coming up in the second segment, we're going to discuss Tristan Jarry and how he's getting his 3rd straight start, and Pat, just how good he is against the St. Louis Blues during his career. But before we get to that, we got to tell you all about our first sponsor, and that is Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place to stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save so much more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half of your first year. And we're not done. We still got to tell you all about our second sponsor, and that is Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posting on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in that spot where you need the right hire, like yesterday. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed's sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. But now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. And Pat, I did forget to say something during the first segment, and I'm excited also for this game because of Kevin Hayes. First game against his former team since the trade. He had a really strong game against Vegas on Tuesday, went all the way around the world on the top power play, feeds it to Rickard Rakell, who gives it to Sidney Crosby. They don't score that power play goal without Hayes with the way he played on the top unit. I know a lot of people kind of scoff that he's on the top unit, but when he's making plays like that, you can kind of keep him up there for at least a little bit longer. But I think he's going to be very motivated for this game. I think he's going to want to show the Blues what they're missing because, again, I know you look at his counting stats, 9 goals, 18 points. It's nothing to be like, oh my God, he's lighting the world on fire or anything like that. But he's been a good, solid depth player for the Penguins. And I'm excited to see what he can do against his former team.
It's becoming a broken record for me, but it really is reminiscent of when the Penguins had Boyle. There is no earthly reason that he should fit in this well and be as effective as he's been, but it just seems to work. But for me, it comes back to, and I'm going to dive deep into the hockey man cliches here, but he plays a very honest game. There's nothing about his game that takes a shortcut. There's nothing about his game that takes a shift off. And he's just a very intelligent player. You watch him with the puck on his stick. When he went around the world on that power play, he recognized that he had the space to do it. He wasn't trying to make something out of nothing. Vegas was giving him that perimeter lane. And to the Penguins' credit, as they were giving him that perimeter, Rakell got himself into good position. Crosby got himself into good position. Yep. Other players on that power play made themselves options. But because he held on to the puck as long as he did, a lot of Vegas's penalty killers started to fixate on him because he just continued to hold the puck, and that opened up those lanes. But overall, I have been very satisfied with Kevin Hayes as a Penguin. I've liked his game. I've liked what he's brought to the table. And is he going to be somebody that the Penguins have to count on over the next few years? Absolutely not. But for the rest of this season, and I keep saying it, even next year, I think he's worth holding on to at least through at least until the trade deadline of next year.
I would say that's fair. I think his puck protection has been one of the more underrated aspects that I've noticed about his game this year. He is super good at fending off defenders with how big of a body he is with the puck on his stick. And again, that was especially on display on Tuesday, but I hope that he can do that again tonight against his former team to kind of show them what they're missing a bit. But now switching gears to the main topic for this segment, and that is Tristan Jarry. He plays very well against the Blues throughout his career. I will say the Penguins are 6-1 over their last 7 games against the Blues. So this is a team the Penguins have dominated in recent years. But Jarry also, he is 6-1 against the Blues throughout his career, Pat. 185 goals against average, 929 save percentage, and 1 shutout. He is 4-0 against the Blues in Pittsburgh. 1.17 goals against average, 958 save percentage. it is by far the right call to go back to him again. He has been fantastic these last few starts, has more than deserved a third straight start, especially after reading those numbers. He loves playing the Blues, and with how he's played against them, would not be surprised if he puts up another good performance here. Again, it's funny. He's putting up these good performances now that they're buried in the standings, but not earlier this season when they were fully in the race. Again, I just have to kind of laugh about it a little bit, but I still will be fascinated to see if he turns into a pumpkin again this start, or does he keep this little hot streak going a little bit here?
Well, if you're Mike Sullivan, you find out. That's what I think you do right now is you said it. This team's buried in the standings. They're not going to make the playoffs. They are headed for a third straight summer of no postseason. And you also brought up Jarry's numbers against St. Louis. He clearly likes to play against this team. He's found a lot of success against them. 7 games, not that small of a sample size. He continues to perform very well against the Blues. And obviously, history isn't always a reference to what is going to happen in the present, but again, 7 games, not that small of a sample size. The other thing is, I know that everybody's frustrated about this. I know that we all were calling him Tank Commander and wanted him to help this team get a better pick in the upcoming draft, but we haven't dove deep into it yet. Hopefully sometime here in the next couple weeks, we can get our good pal Jesse Marshall and do a real deep dive into the 2025 draft. But the overall consensus is that this draft is not that strong. It's not that bad at the top, but once you get out of the top 7, top 8, it's not guys who stink. It's not guys who are going to immediately be busts, but it's not going to be franchise altering. It's not going to be superstar level players that you get. So
most people think there's only 2 players that can play in this draft as soon as next season. I think there's 4. I think Higgins and Porter Martone can play as soon as next season, but still, your overall point stands that outside of 4 guys, I don't think anyone else in this draft is going to be ready to play as soon as next season.
Right. So that gets into what I was getting ready to say there is I don't think it's the worst thing if Tristan Jarry figures it out down the stretch for 2 reasons. One, we have said it on this show. His biggest problem at the end of last season and then going into the start of this season was confidence and a mental block. It just seemed like he couldn't figure it out here because we have seen in his career, he has stretches where he looks like a very good goaltender. And when he goes cold, he goes ice cold. Now, if he figures it out down the stretch, there's a couple different ways you can go here. One, you're putting him right back into a goaltending competition next season because you're still going to have Alex Nedeljkovic. You're definitely going to have Yoel Blomqvist knocking on the door. And it's not going to be that long, hopefully, before Sergei Murashov starts knocking on the door to come to the NHL. And hopefully we can go full Mike Tomlin on this and iron can sharpen iron and the best goalie can rise to the top and earn the job. On the other hand, if he gets hot down the stretch and he figures it out, he plays really well to end the season. Between that and a rising salary cap, it's not going to be, I think, as difficult as so many people think to trade him because eventually his cap hit starts to look like what a backup to 1B starter money would be once we get to that really high salary cap. And if he has a very strong showing down the stretch, there's a team out there who maybe they're not quite rebuilding. Maybe they're not quite contending. They're kind of right there in that mushy middle. They could maybe take a chance on him. Now, you're not going to get some big return for him. That idea is long gone, but you've got him. You've got 30 picks over the next 3 drafts, and you have a boatload in the 3rd to 7th rounds. So it would not be, I think, that difficult to convince a team, hey, we'll toss you a 4th round pick in Tristan Jarry and he's yours. And you don't have to give us back much of anything. You can give us back a pick. You can give us back a prospect that really isn't coming along that maybe we just want to be a player in Wilkes-Barre or Wheeling. And So at the end of the day, I know we all want this team to fall further down the standings, get the big pick, but realistically, you need to be looking more at the 2026 draft. And if Tristan Jarry can increase his value down the stretch, that just makes this rebuild, retool on the fly even better.
I hear you on that. I still think it's going to be tough to move him this offseason no matter what. Even say, Pat, he goes on this little mini heater to end the season. The Penguins pick, just going to throw this out there, 6th or 7th in the NHL draft. They don't get a top 5 pick. They may miss out on the big 4 that I think will be NHL ready. I still think they're going to have an opportunity to take a really good player at number 6, number 7, someone like Eklund, for example. I don't think he's going to be ready for next season, but I think he instantly becomes, one of your top prospects in the system and someone that could potentially be a difference maker, down the line. I think with Jarry, if he does play well down the stretch here, you can try to convince a sucker to take him, but it's still easier said than done because you look at his overall body of work and yeah, it's nice that he's doing this right now because the stakes are low, but will a team look at him and be like, oh, when the stakes get high, is he going to fold under pressure? Because he's done that with the Penguins basically every year that he's been the starter. So I still think teams might be a bit reserved and be like, I know he went on a heater to potentially end the season here, but we still don't know if we want to do this because this could very well be a mirage. And in my opinion, I think it would be a mirage because we've seen him play in high stakes situations and he just hasn't been able to close the deal. But hey, he's getting the start tonight. Curious to see how he plays. And, we'll go from there when we recap this game on Friday and then potentially if he gets his 4th straight start on Saturday against the Devils. But I think that will do it for the second segment. Coming up to end the show, Wilkes-Barre and Hershey played a very fun game on Wednesday. Wilkes-Barre came out with a 5-4 shootout win. Pat and I are going to discuss how Rutger McGroarty and Billy Koivunen once again had very good games, as my dog downstairs is trying to tell you all as well. But before we get to that, we got to tell you all about our final sponsor, and that is FanDuel. March Madness is finally here. It's one of the best times of the sports here at the NCAA tournament starting next week, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few teams this year, especially Alabama, Auburn, Duke is going to be really good. Clemson from the ACC. I'm an ACC guy. The conference is really bad. I went to Virginia Tech, but still, Duke and Clemson are both very good teams this year, and I think we'll be making pretty deep runs. So look for those when you start filling out your bracket this Sunday. Also remember, guys, the FanDuel app is very easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, we're back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Dam. So, Pat, I figured we would end the show talking about Wilkes-Barre for a few minutes once again. Played a really fun back-and-forth game against Hershey on Wednesday. Really fun, a lot of offense, and it ended in a shootout. And usually I don't like shootouts. It was a fun one to watch. He had some really nice saves from Sergei Murashov. Sam Poulin ended in the 5th round, and it was so big for Wilkes-Barre to get those points as the Baby Pens are trying to chase down Hershey in the standings. We all know Wilkes-Barre is going to make the playoffs. They're in it to win a Calder Cup. And even before the shootout, Rutger McGroarty gets another goal. And where was he, Pat? Right around the net front on the power play. He's been doing that a lot more, especially these last few weeks. And his game continues to really blossom down there. And I really loved that goal. You saw Billy Koivunen had a really nice saucer pass across the offensive zone on the power play. Puck goes to the net. McGroarty crashes it. Gets a really nice greasy goal, and he continues to play lights out. Billy Koivunen also gets another goal in this game, his 20th. He continues to be right around a point per game. So, Pat, as we discussed on Wednesday, these two kids in particular continue to play really strong hockey for the Baby Pens. Murashov also gets another win as a starting netminder.
Yep, they do. And 8-0-0 for Sergei Murashov at the American Hockey League level, quickly becoming less of a mirage, quickly becoming what we would call a thing.
Yeah.
But he's playing very well. And the Baby Penguins, they are coming up real fast in Hershey's rearview mirror. The Baby Penguins are second in the Atlantic behind Hershey, just 4 points behind them. So it is going to be an incredibly fun final stretch for the baby Penguins. And we talked about it already this week, but I'm going to continue beating the drum that with the way this season is going, with a handful of prospects that the Penguins have high expectations for, leave them there. Fans, I get it. I know they're shiny new toys. We can see them underneath the Christmas tree. We want to open them and we want to play with them and we want them right now. But patience, because this is going to be a very fun end for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. And you look at the league as a whole, they are right now tied for the 5th best record in the entire American Hockey League. They're behind, obviously, Hershey. They're behind Laval, who leads the league. Hershey's in 2nd. Rochester's in 3rd. And they are tied with the Colorado Eagles for the 4th best record in the league. So they're in 5th technically because of certain tiebreakers and games remaining. But at the end of the day, this team is playing very meaningful hockey, and it's another hurdle as a group that they were able to clear last night against Hershey, because we have seen this at the NHL level. When you are a contending team, when you are a team with championship aspirations, for the most part, you look at a lot of the previous champions, there was always a team that they had to find a way to slay the dragon and get over. For the Penguins, I know people nowadays will laugh at this, but if you remember, it was the Ottawa Senators, and then it was the Detroit Red Wings. And then in 16-17, it was the New York Rangers. And Hershey has been a thorn in their side for years. Not only have they been a thorn in their side, Hershey's just been one of the best teams in the AHL for a long time. So starting to keep pace with them, they're building some confidence, they're stacking some wins. And like you said, McGroarty and Koivunen are just really starting to blossom. And you know these guys want to be in the NHL. We want them to be in the NHL. But when they come up, I don't ever want them to go back. So continue to build that confidence, continue to develop your game, continue to play meaningful hockey. And either whether it's next year at some point or even a year after, I want these guys to be here, and I want them to be here for good.
That's the thing. Like, you want it to be the call. Like when they come up, you want it to be, okay, we're not sending you guys back down. We think you are ready for full-time NHL duty, and we never want to send you back down there again. And that's their goal right now. You know, Kyle Dubas, he's been talking with Ray Ferraro and Darren Dreger on their podcast, and he even said, they're weighing the pros and cons of calling up some of these young guys this season, being like, okay, we could call them up, but if we don't, again, we can have them cook a little bit more down in Wilkes-Barre. I even tweeted last night after McGroarty got that really nice greasy goal around the net. I understand. I would love to see him play down the stretch here. I mean, I think he's kind of ready right now. I think Koivunen is right there as well. I would love to see him play down the stretch, but I also get it if they don't want to do it. Like, you want to keep seeing these kids cook down there, build that chemistry, especially since a Calder Cup playoff run is right around the corner. They are all in to win the Calder Cup this year. So I think the importance of that kind of trumps the main squad right now, where, again, we know where this 24-25 Penguins team is going, even though they've won a couple of games in a row. And also McGroarty, 3rd star of the game last night. Koivunen, 2nd star. Sam Poulin got the 1st star last night. So congratulations to Wilkes-Barre getting a major win over Hershey as Wilkes-Barre tries to chase them down. Pat, do you have anything else to add on the show before we wrap up?
The main thing I wanted to say, especially about Wilkes-Barre's game last night that really impressed me, was the fact that it was a resilient Wilkes-Barre team, because they hop out 2-0 lead. Hershey ends up tying it. They answer back to take the lead again. Hershey answers back again, and they just stuck with it all night. And when you're up against a very good team and you are developing prospects, experience like this is so valuable, because we say it on this show all the time, especially about the teams that are down in the dumps. When you get a couple goals on them, you get a stretch of good play on them, their mentality goes to, crap, here we go again. But this Wilkes-Barre team in this group, they're finding resiliency, and they're learning in finding out about themselves that, yeah, we can do this. So really happy with their effort. And if you're a Penguins fan, temper your excitement just a little bit, because we do know that AHL success doesn't always translate to NHL success, but the development track for some of the guys we've had our eyes on is really good right now.
And I'll also say this, if you haven't watched a lot of Wilkes-Barre games this year, please go ahead and do it. They are a very fun team to watch, especially offensively, and they usually get great goaltending on a nightly basis. Larson's been great. Blomqvist, for the most part, has been good. And then, Sergei Murashov, Pat, 8-0 in Wilkes-Barre this year. So, again, if you haven't had the time to watch it, make at least a little bit, because this is a very good and fun team. But I think that's going to do it for today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to / watch this one. Pat and I will be back with another show for you all on Friday to recap this game against the Blues and get you all set for Saturday's showdown against the New Jersey Devils. So for Patrick Damp, I am Hunter Hodes. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll be back on Friday.